Welcome to this presentation by Team Sprayer. My name is Julius, I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts, and I completed the software project with my partner Ian, who is London-based. So, to start, I'd like to discuss our problem statement and impact. So with the current effort to plant more trees, organizations, both big and small, need a platform or a software solution to determine planting locations which will maximize CO2 uptake by the trees. So planting trees at current rates but in more optimal conditions or locations can make a large difference in the CO2 that's absorbed, and such small changes are really easy to make and make a large difference in the long run. So our product helps organizations to choose mass tree planting locations to optimize results. So I'd like to talk a little bit about our product as well. So it takes an unlimited number of location inputs for analysis. It converts these inputs into coordinates and elevation using Google APIs. It fetches the weather data using the Meteostat API for Python. And it comprehensively analyzes the data, including the average temperature, minimum maximum temperatures, wind, air pressures, and precipitation. And it outputs a score for each category as well as a total score out of 100. And it's able to produce analytical graphs using the weather data. Each of these categories that I just talked about are really important when predicting the longevity and overall health of the planted trees. So what we've completed over the past few days, we have a fully functional Python algorithm, an interactive business prototype, and we started work on a GUI0-based GUI and a fully functional web page. So to start, I'm going to show you our Figma prototype. So we envisioned it as either a mobile or a web solution. So you're able to input your first location here, and so it's going to give us the opportunity to input really as many locations as we want. So I'm going to go through and add a few, and then I'm going to click next, and it's going to compile the locations, get the coordinates, the elevation, the weather data, and then it's going to analyze that data and output the results. So you see the total score, and then the score for each category that it analyzed, and you're able to export the full report if you need it. And based on the data submitted, it's actually able to determine that one of the areas is actually a severe wildfire risk. So next I'm going to show you the fully functional Python script. So it's going to ask us again for our first location as in the Figma prototype, and it's going to keep asking us whether we want to input locations, and it really takes an unlimited number of inputs. The only difference that it makes is processing times, and we try to mitigate that with something that I'll show you on the next step. So I'm going to put in a variety of geographical locations, so some in the Northeast, some in California, some in Alaska, and one in Vancouver. And then I'm going to put in London, just for the sake of variety. So London, and let's do Dubai. So Dubai shouldn't really have a high score because it's not very hospitable to plants. So here, it's going to ask us for how much data we want to process. So if we have a lot of inputs, we don't want to use the weather data from, let's say, 2000 onwards, right? We're going to use it from 2010. Then it's going to input the scores, so output actually. It's going to output the scores, and you see the scores, so the total scores and the scores for each category. And it's going to sort of say, oh, this is a good score, adequate score, or not really great score. And you see that most of the national forests do have a score of 70 or 80 or above. And Dubai actually has a score of 38 out of 100, which sounds pretty accurate. So let's see. It's going to give us the option to view a temperature graph for the inputted locations. I'm going to put in the Berkshire Mountains, and it outputs the graph. So this is why we want to have a graph over many years, so that we can adjust for these gaps in weather data from the API. But that's really it. And finally, if you're interested, I'd like to briefly walk you through our code. So we have a main file where all of the results from the other functions are compiled. Some brief processing takes place, and then everything is printed to the console. We have our algorithm, which uses the weather data and the date-time data for when we want the weather data processed for, processes the data and comes up with the scores. We have our dates, so for when we want the data for. We have our elevation API, and then we have our location API, both of which are using the Google APIs. Then we have our main 2, so this is our graphical user interface, which we worked on and got pretty far into. This is connected to the main file. And then finally we have an experimental file for our website, which we were trying to connect, and then the CSS, JavaScript, and HTML files. And that's really it for our project here, and we'd like to thank you for joining us today and taking the time to listen through. We really appreciate it, and we really hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.